Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Nikki Buchanan, and I am the host of the How to Be Magical podcast. I'm the owner of Soul Things Botanica, and today we are here with a very special guest joining us live from DR. We have a very special guest, and the title of this episode is Bad Dominicana, Decoded, How Zahira Cabrera Rewrites the Rules, and we have Zahira on the line, and thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I was just off camera. I was complimenting your hair because I think it is so cute, and this wallpaper. And I'm just like, Are you sitting outside right now?
Nah, I really put this in my art studio.
Okay, because I'm looking at the wrought iron bench behind you, and I'm like, this is like so like Caribbean, auntie.
It
I
really-
definitely Caribbean auntie. Like if it was me, I'm looking at the color. I'm like, is that like a that's like a I guess it would be like a haint blue or like a
Yeah,
nice light teal with the monstera leaves. It's just I don't know. I feel like it's perfect. Um,
thank you.
Definitely what we need. So can you just let the people know who you are, where you from, what you do?
Let's see who I am. I'm Zahira Cabrera, known as maybe Zahira Kelly. Formerly married name. I'm an artist, writer, some say activist, maybe advocate, but basically I do everything from a very Black Latin American feminist perspective. Just because like that perspective is like missing from everywhere, including here in Latin America. Basically, they act like we don't exist. So like that's really where all my work has been coming from, and just from survival, more than anything else.
Okay, and it's funny that you say that because before we got on, I complimented your hair, and you said that people had an issue with your hair.
They have. They've been warning me like, you don't think that's too much like a man? Like it's masculine. So it's like, okay, like who do I owe the femininity to? So actually considering what femininity we're talking about, like white femininity, right? You want me to have long straight hair or whatever. And I feel like they don't even match my face, to be honest. Um,
And it's just so funny. I mean, I don't know. I think that people could be. It's just weird. Like that's like such an odd thing to. I find it odd to say that to someone else to be like, I think you look too much like a man. It's like, well, who the hell are you? Like,
and I
who are you to comment on my appearance in that way? That's like, okay, that's how
that's
you feel. And what am I supposed to do with that information?
like so much of my work comes from those experiences because like I was married at one point and when I first went natural, I want to say it was like 2005, 2006-ish, I shaved off all my hair because I used to relax it. And my then husband had a whole fit, like a 2-month tantrum, talking about I make him feel gay because I look like a man, you know? So it was just like,
That's so. That
and
is.
those are things where I could talk about it and nobody could give me advice on it and be like, girl, you're not supposed to be with that person. It was like, but he pays bills, he don't cheat on you, he don't hit you.
Right, and let's go into it. The first question on my list here is you started a hashtag called maybe he doesn't hit you. um so was that what inspired the hashtag life with your ex-husband?
It was. Honestly, at that moment, I was still trapped in that. And nobody knew about that because I didn't talk about it, which is good because a lot of people weaponized what I did share to try to hurt me, Um, at that point when I started it, honestly, I was just getting shit off of my chest. Mostly because I was learning about emotional abuse, trying to make sense of what was happening to me. And I was feeling trapped, like I didn't have no way out. Like I was a stay-at-home mom and wife. I didn't have a job history. Um, the jobs that I looked at didn't pay enough for me to be like, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna be okay with my daughter. Like, I felt like there was no way out. So I just started tweeting them. My other friend, Lauren Chief Falk, started tweeting with me. And I didn't have any expectations for it other than getting shit off of my chest, which is honestly how I've done everything. And that like went global, basically. It went like viral. It went global. If you look it up, there's still mad entries to this day. People still adding to it, because it connected with a lot of people where you normalize so much of like the horrible things people do to you, but it's like, well, it's just not technically abusive, right? But like it is. It's abusive. It's meant to break you down. It's meant to control you. It's meant to like coerce you. And that's really where it came from. Like I really thought that I was hopeless at that moment. And I want to say a year later, I had left that man. I was living by myself at that point. Um, the apartment I was at burned down. I had to go to my mom's, you know.
Wow.
We lost everything, basically. Um, and I got hit up to do a TED talk about it.
TED Talk.
So like that's something that I like cried a lot about because I went from not thinking that I had no way fucking out to doing a fucking TED talk about the same subject because it reached Mexico and a Mexican feminist reached out to me like, can we do a Spanish version for here? And like it was on the news stations, it was viral over there. So I ended up doing a TED talk in Mexico about that. Mind you, at that point, I was like staying at my mom's. I was still transitioning from like having lost everything in our apartment. I had just been recently divorced, like officially, because it was over for a long time, but officially, you know. Um, I was sharing a bed with Annabelle because there was nowhere else for us to be, you know. And I'm like over here doing a talk in Mexico. I do a lot of speaking events on like race and gender in Latin America. And I don't have a problem with public speaking whatsoever, but that was such a sensitive topic for me and it was so recent and close to home that my voice is like shaking in the beginning because like I kind of wanted to cry to be honest, and I felt like I was like so somber and everybody else was doing like their really hopeful inspirational little TED Talks, but when I got off that stage, there was like 2 dozen women in line waiting for me, crying their fucking eyes out because they identified with that. The other people didn't have people waiting for them because it was like, oh, we discovered this new technology. Nobody wants to talk about that. You know, it's like there's nothing to comment on that. But it's like, excuse the puppies. My dog have puppies and they're very dramatic.
Oh.
They cry about everything. So like that's how that happened, honestly. Even the whole doing talks on race and gender in Latin America, I was trying to figure out my place in the world and I was going through that situation and I was just in a place where it was like, I'm looking for the gay Latina feminists and these are all white women from Latin America or mestizas or something. They're like, I don't even exist. And then I'm looking at black feminists and I'm like, you're talking about my life. But when I try to address this, you're like, you're not even black anyway. You're not even from here, you know? So it was just like, okay, I am working out this shit on my own then, And they started calling me from universities because there were a lot of black Latina girls that followed me and were going through hell at their universities. They were like, not allowed to be in the black orgs somehow, even though they were black, but then the Latino orgs were racist as fuck to them. So like here's a person who is actually talking about what the fuck I'm living. So that's how it all began. When I felt like I had nothing that I could possibly do, a path was fucking created, girl. This is why people be like, oh no, because you have to dream and you have to visualize and whatever. I'm gonna be honest with you, my ancestors did the dreaming for me because that's a path that I didn't even know existed. I had never seen it before. I never thought this is gonna fall into my lap and I'm gonna be able to live off of this and leave this fucking situation. And it literally all fucking came together. It's like the same shit that I was trying to work through and survive is what got me the fuck out of the situation. Like, girl, I left that man. I was sleeping with my mom and like in my mom's house, like with my daughter or whatever, just like what the fuck am I gonna do? And like when I went to Mexico to do the TED Talk, I told Cynthia, the woman who like set it all up, who's like a Mexican feminist, I was like, Cynthia, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I can't do talks because who am I gonna leave my daughter with? You know, I don't know what there is ahead for me. I don't see it. You know what I'm saying? Girl, 2018, January 2018 came, and that year I went to over 40 schools.
Wow.
I didn't know what to do with the bookings. It just all fucking rained down like, here it is. That's what you're gonna do. And you're gonna figure out the fucking way. And I did. You know, it was like that kind of thing. And I feel like most people were mostly seeing me on the internet like, why is this bitch so angry? Why is she so angry? You know? And like that was really always the commentary. And it's like, because none of the stuff that I'm talking about is like theoretical.
This is
It was
all
very
live.
visceral for me. I was literally living through it. You know what I mean? So that's where it's all come from. It was just me trying to figure out what the fuck I'm gonna do with my life. How am I gonna get out of this? What is it that's happening to me? Because I didn't have nobody to explain even my social position and what the fuck it is that I'm going through. Because like during my marriage, I went through mad racism and misogyny. You know, like I was the housewife doing all the cooking and cleaning and like raising a baby and nursing and like doing all his laundry. And he's like, you don't contribute anything. And like putting me down every day. So it's just like I didn't have to read that in a book either on feminism. Like I literally lived that shit myself, the domestic exploitation. You know, and then like his friends talking about, well, if you feel so disenfranchised, why don't you go back to Africa? And I'm there like at that point, yo, I couldn't even articulate. I didn't have the words, literally.
The
And that
fuck?
was the catalyst because I was like, yo, I don't even have the words to respond to this, but I want to cry. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like his mom was mad racist too. Brought up all the fucking welfare mom tropes, even though I wasn't on welfare. I was living with her son, who was my husband, you know. Who was paying the bills, right? And then it turned out like I realized, oh, you're racist because then it turned out like she was on welfare for 6 years, not working as a
Mm.
single mother, but she's a white woman, right? So she can do that because he's like, you know, mixed or whatever. And so it was just like, oh, so this is why it's different because you're white. You can do shit like that. I'm not even on welfare, but I'm a lazy welfare mom. Right? And it was just like so many things I had to process with no way to articulate it because when you're Dominican, you're not taught how to fucking articulate none of this shit. Nobody explains none of this shit to you. I was completely unprepared. Well, I'm fucking prepared now. I am fucking prepared now. Like that's where it all came from. Hard knocks.
And I mean, I think that, I think it's interesting that you said that sometimes you can't visualize, like there's all of this talk in the spiritual community of like, oh, you have to be
Be
able to
like, oh
see it.
well, if you don't
And
believe it, it's
if you,
not gonna
yeah, if you
happen
don't
to
believe that
you.
it's
Just
possible. And I
believe it
think that there are a lot of us that are like, we are living lives that we didn't even know were possible, that we didn't even know existed, and vocations and things that we didn't even know were possible, especially not for people that look like us. And for a lot of us, we're trailblazers. We have to be the person that lives and gets offered the opportunities, and like, you just get the little paving stone set in front of you and you step on that, and then another little paving stone, and you can't really see what the end goal is, but you just have the faith, and you just like walk on the little path, and you're like, okay, I'm walking with this, guys. I don't know what else to do. Like you're saying, like, this is my life. This is lived experience. This is not something that I went to school for and read a bunch of books and went to a bunch
Yeah.
of lectures and all of this stuff. Like, no, I was living with this man. He was making my life a living hell. His family's being racist to me. Like, that is a very, and I think it's so, when you said that, people were like, oh, you're so angry. I think that when we are talking about just life as women, and within the margins, right, what they call the margins, They all like people always so surprised that you're angry. It's like,
Why wouldn't I be? Why wouldn't I be angry?
wouldn't you be angry if somebody was trying to was actively trying to put you down and disenfranchise you and make you feel less than? Like, that is a natural response. Like, anger is a natural response, and I feel like there's a lot of
That
ways that
really kept me alive. That's the thing. There's a
exactly,
space.
it's human to be angry, because when you're not angry you're just like,
Like,
well,
no, like, do you think the Haitian Revolution would have happened if they wasn't angry? They had to be angry. They
they
had to
was
be
very
angry.
angry. If they were just like, well, that's just life, this is just what it is, wouldn't have been no revolution, truly, on multiple fronts, right? And I think that goes into our next question of, you've been critical of white feminism and respectability politics, right? And that's what we're talking about. Oh, there's a right and a wrong way. Oh gosh, come on, Jury, don't fall off. There's a right and a wrong way to be angry, to process things. Um, what do you think modern feminism gets wrong about protecting women and girls?
I don't think people are angry enough. I'm sorry. I don't think that people it's like people want to do white girl theory. Well, here's a book, but like people are not living off of books. People are like, "Have you read the academic theory?" And like I have a lot of respect for all the people who wrote all that, right? It was very hard work and it's all like very relevant, but like most people don't even have access to these books, you know. Most people are living very viscerally. Um, and I don't know, there's just a lot of posturing, there's a lot of elitism, there's a lot of not really thinking in a bottoms up type of way, which is like centering the most marginalized. And that goes even for Black feminists. It'll be like, we're focusing on the college educated girls who haven't really been through that, but they read about it. And it's like, and again, I feel like that's like an offshoot of white feminism because it wasn't supposed to be that way. I've like enjoyed meeting Black feminists here who are like very much about that life, like really, like they work with the girls in the barrios, like they're like very much doing bottoms up, which I don't really see a lot of. I feel like in the US they leave that to nonprofits.
Yes,
They leave it to an org,
yes, that's
you know?
definitely in
But
somebody's mission
girls here
statement.
take it into their own hands, you know? And like, I don't know, that's and what's funny is Dominican Americans are trying to come here on some nonprofit logic, acting like fucking gringos. Very exploitative. They have their little grants, they do their little studies, and then they go home and they leave the people with nothing of worth, you know? But they have their little stats for their nonprofit, you know? They got their free vacation, you know? Um, and yeah, that's like an issue. That's an issue for me. Um, there's a lot of focusing on the wrong people. There's a lot of silencing people for being angry or uncouth or whatever the fuck. And here, honestly, not even feminists, but just in general, spaces are like super respectability politic driven. So I'm very much a persona non grata in a lot of spaces here because they find me to be too hood, too barrio, too ratchet, whatever the Spanish equivalent would be of that, you know? Um, so yeah, there's a lot of gatekeeping, hella gatekeeping. I never went to fucking college. I took one semester of community college and I couldn't even afford that. I was collecting little dimes and pennies and shit just for the bus. I couldn't even afford the fucking books. There's some things that were never for us. So it's like to base it on like, academics and college and whatever the fuck, like you already not doing it. Um, where are the homeless women in all of this? It reminds me of these posts going around where men deny that lower class men are oppressive, and I'm just like, have y'all ever lived in a lower class neighborhood?
Have you ever lived in the hood? Have you ever lived in the hood?
I'm
Like,
like, have you asked homeless women who is abusive and who is raping them? It's homeless men, you know, and other people who are not homeless, but also the people who are in their situation. It's just like everybody on all ends is very determined to keep centering the same people. I feel like, honestly. Um Other qualms I have with modern feminism, it's like a weird sex positivity that doesn't examine consent even. They're like, as long as you say yes. And I'm like, can they say no? And like, I feel like we went through this already years ago, and yet we're back at square one again with it. Blaming Gen X for being too frigid or prudish. And I'm like, you have a problem with teen girls who are dealing with the incel generation, not wanting to have those motherfuckers touch them. Is this actually a problem? What is it to you if teen girls are having sex or not? What is it like? Does it
yeah,
even
what's the
affect your
issue?
life? And I just feel like it's like a feminism that's coming from being like, I don't know about you, but when I was a teen, I was coerced a lot by way older people. This is exactly what Gen Z is talking about right now, by the way. Millennials are trying to coerce them, basically. Um,
Mm.
I was pushed into things that I wasn't ready for, you know? It was the type of thing where like, okay, maybe I had a sex life since I was a teen, but I never really had sexual autonomy till I was like 27, you know? And like those years to me, it's like a painful memory. And I'm just like, are the millennials not thinking about this? The girls
No,
are
they're
trying
not.
to fucking avoid having sex that they're not fully ready for. And
Mm.
like the millennials are not fucking calculating because they're just like, you just have to have sex. You have to, you have to, you have to. And I'm like, can we examine the compulsory fucking
No, you don't.
heterosexuality here?
You don't. Because I was even talking about this a couple of weeks ago about like, I was re examining some of the experiences that I had around like 15 to my early 20s. You know, there was men that were way too old for me. I was in very abusive situations, you
Like,
know,
what
literally had
happened?
to pack up all of my things and run for my life. I had a man threaten to beat me in the head with a shovel and bury me in the backyard. I was 19 years old. He threatened to break up my sewing machine that he just bought for me just a couple of weeks prior for Christmas. And then when I didn't want to do what he wanted me to do, he would put all my clothes in a garbage bag and put it by the door. Like, it was like,
And this is what I'm
yeah.
saying. It's like if somebody call you sex negative after some show, are you sex negative?
Am I sex negative or am I traumatized? And truly not really
Are you right to fucking stay the fuck
to
away?
not want to engage, you know, and to look at men crazy and kind of be
Yeah,
like, or, you know, and I was talking about
exactly.
how
So
many of us have had sexual experiences that we went along with it because it was easier than having somebody take it from you. You're like, let me just give him some.
right, and that's not
That's not the same as I really want to do this. That's
not sex positive. I don't know, girl. Like, I'm really having issues watching the so-called feminists do this. You know, like, it'll be like a Gen Z girl saying, like, why do girls have to suffer through an IUD and these dudes would only celebrate? They don't have to go through anything. And, like, shaming them for questioning that and calling it feminism and calling it regressive if you question that. And I'm like, they should be questioning it because it's not fair. Because they do fucking hurt. And like a lot of people have mad issues with IUDs. I'm not saying that it's not good to have birth control,
yeah,
but like
but
if you
like
just really look at the fact that these dudes only ever get the benefits, they never have to go through the suffering.
they don't have to lay on the table and get some
You know?
invasive
And they're
procedure
like, well,
done.
some of us like to get cum inside or whatever. We like cream pies. And I'm like, that's not the point. And
Nobody's
like
saying that.
this type of feminism, yo, I don't. And then they're like,
Nobody's saying that.
they're like, you're too old fashioned, you're regressive. And it's like, I'm not regressive. You're missing the point on purpose. And it's so that you can ensure that these unworthy motherfuckers, because I can bet you that they're not fucking worthy, 99.999% of the time continue to have access to young girls. For what? Why are you fighting so hard for unworthy motherfuckers to have access to young girls? I need the girls to think. I need the
Truly.
girls to think.
Truly. And if you
You
really
know?
think about it historically, right? Like if we really want to go like really deep in history, we are dealing with some unprecedented levels of like unmarried, unattached, uncorralled men, right? Like before, there used to be places to send men, all right? Men went to the monastery, men went to the military, right? Men went
Mhm.
on a boat. They were at sea for months on end. No one seen or heard from them. They was each other's problems, right? That was, and it was a very few men were able to marry, have kids, procreate, do the whole shebang. Like that was not. Now we're dealing with men who just feel, they're feral, truly. They're
And they're
unhinged.
so ahistorical because they be out here talking about angry, like, because girls are like, no, I don't want to have sex with you. You know, they're like, it used to be so easy. They would just give it up. And I'm like, when I was a teen, people used to have to get married to fucking peace. Okay, you had way more expectations. You had to be a whole husband, at least here. You know what I'm saying? So it's like for you to act like it was easier,
It
y'all
wasn't.
have no expectations now.
It wasn't.
People
And
not
even
none of
going
that no
even
more.
going to school in New York City in the 90s and like to see the shift of how sex is regarded and and how things work. Like I remember it was a very specific brand of churchy Latina that was not having vaginal sex, but they was doing other things to preserve their virginity. Remember this, right? There was like a whole thing of
That was
like
a whole fucking
a
thing.
whole thing
The Mormons were also famous
very
for
much like, no, I'm still a virgin. Like everybody was still very much holding on to being a
right.
virgin. Like it was
No,
still,
I had to be a virgin until marriage. Like
I
that
have to be a
kind
virgin till marriage. Even the certain like certain acts were not like, it was like if you was sucking dick, that was like, girl, what? Like there was a whole scandal in my high school.
yeah, no, no,
That was a
no.
big scandal. Now to see the girls be like, again, it's like, again, whose benefit? Who is it for? Truly,
Only the
who's it
men are
for?
benefiting, and I'm sorry to all the feminists who be like, "How dare you?" But like, listen, 15-year-old girls are being pressured into anal sex. They now have a laundry list of sexual expectations because porn or something. I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
But like,
Anal
what are
sex,
these girls even going
threesomes,
through? They're being pressured. They're being coerced. They're being fucking threatened. Like, oh, I'll release your shit if you don't do it.
and
You know,
that too.
they'll like, I'll release your nudes. I'll release your videos or whatever. And it's just like, is this really sexual revolution? Is this sexual liberation?
It can't
Is
be. You
is
can't.
it?
It can't be. I don't believe you.
Just
I'm
need the
sorry.
girls to think. So those are my issues right now that I'm seeing that I'm like, this not adding up. It's not adding up. It's like at the end of the day, we're still being shamed. We are not safe physically or emotionally. But like, it's this much expectations. Back then, it was like if you suck dick, that was like a big deal.
It was a big deal. I'm telling you, it was a huge scandal at my school.
A big
When I
fucking
say
deal.
it was a scandal, it was a scandal. Like
For real.
it was like talked
Like,
about for months. It was like, oh gosh, can you believe this? This is what she was doing. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. Talk of the town. Now it's like that's just par for the course.
they're like, oh no, that's conservative. Like, man, that's not conservative. Where's the girl's safety? When did you factor that?
And
When
now
did you
everybody has a
factor
phone with a camera, and things are being shared against people's will, coercively. Like that is a big issue. That is
it?
something that we did not have to factor in. That was not something that you thought about.
Nah,
That was
it is.
not something that you thought about. Even though I will say, I never forget. See, this is why I've had a lifetime of meeting people on dating apps and on the internet and all this shit that I know I could never meet another person ever again. I never forget. I was in high school and I met this guy off like AOL, right? It's like the year 2000, 2001. I go to his
Mhm.
house. He lives in Queens. I go to his house. He has a fucking camcorder set up on a tripod in the corner of the room. I said, well, what's that for? Oh, well, just in case what? I made sure I left. I was out of there. I wasn't even in there 5 minutes. And I thought about it, and I was like, damn, how many other girls been in this room on camera? Maybe this the first. Maybe sometimes he leaves it out in the open. What if he covers it up? What if he puts it under a pile of clothes, and nobody knows that it's there? What if he puts it in the closet with the door cracked open?
And I just know they be doing that so much
I
now.
was 15, 16. He wasn't that grown, but he was grown enough, right? And it's like those like, so now it's like that on a different level, because now everybody has a phone in their pocket that's instantly connected to the internet, and the minute that you walk in the room, or it could be shared all across the world.
Yeah, no.
No.
I just need the girls to think about the girls' safety a little bit more.
Yeah,
Instead of
we
just
have
like
to think about that.
for the sake of sex and not thinking about what are the fucking ramifications of this. What are the girls hiding and running from? They're right. That's all I'm gonna say. They are right to, and I don't think that they're prudes. I think that they're well aware of the fucking dangers, and they don't want no parts in it. Whereas we were like coerced.
And it wasn't like something. It wasn't a place or even room socially to talk about these things.
Nah, there
The only thing your
wasn't.
parents were telling you was don't do it. Don't do it. Don't get pregnant. Don't do it. Don't get pregnant.
That I got was wait until you're married. The boys got condoms, and we got told to wait until we're married, and that's it.
So now that the girls are like, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't want to. I'm proud of them for that.
How dare them? And it's like, nah, I'm here for
No,
please let them say no. We didn't get to say
we
no.
didn't get to say no. Our grandmothers didn't get to say no,
No, they
right?
didn't. It's
They
just like
didn't get to say no. Let the girls say no.
let
Like, it's
them do shit
okay.
on their own time. If they want to wait till they're 37, let them wait until they're 37. They don't owe nobody nothing. If that's when you're ready, that's when you're ready. If you never ready, then don't be.
And the men are not gonna die. No one is going to
They're
die
not.
because they didn't
They're
get
not.
a little trim. They're fine. They will be
Well,
fine.
this feminists be like, it's classist if you don't want to allow access to all kinds of men. Since when the fuck am I a communal?
Classes.
Well, since when am I a communal resource like water? My body is mine. This pussy is a fucking dictatorship. I am not equal
It's
opportunity.
not fucking charity, okay? I'm not Mother Teresa. The fuck?
They're like, no, because Marxism. Marx could go to hell too. If that's what you're gonna fucking
Well,
come with.
whatever you want to do with your pussy, ma'am, that's your business, all right? Again,
I am not obligated to fucking anything, and I feel like the
no,
girls are
absolutely
struggling with
not.
that. The girls are struggling with the concept of not being obligated to give men anything.
Okay.
It's like we got so far and we stay in the same fucking place at the same time.
No, really, because it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, I feel like the goalpost keeps getting pushed, and that's how you know that the argument is not genuine in the first place. Because why is it that when you address the argument, it keeps turning into something else? Well, you need to sleep with men who are poor, and you don't need to be out here requiring anything financial because you're a gold digger. And if he doesn't have any money and you get pregnant, that's your fault. Well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
You should
Wait a
have chucked it.
minute. It's not like we living in this
Better.
utopia that has all of these social networks and social safety nets
You
to
don't
help
have no
women and
for anyone.
girls. God forbid you fall on hard times, some shit happens, you're on your own. So what's wrong with the girl saying, you know what, I'm gonna keep my pussy in my pocket, keep it to myself for right now, and live my life. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, that's where I'm
And
at.
I'm glad that the conversation now, I feel like in the last couple of years there's been a conversation around sex work, and I feel like the lines have been getting blurred online about sex work. The girls are not realizing that some of this feminine coaching and feminine dating stuff, and like that is like sex work. That's like sex work adjacent advice that they're giving you, right? in the sense of like, oh, um, if you, I was just saying this to someone else. I was like, if you are going after men specifically for their resources, right? That you have to understand that those might not be the same men that you are in love with, right? What you consider to be what society is telling you that you're in love, and that is okay. Just understand that don't try to misconstrue it as, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get this man, because like you're saying, now we're talking about the disparity of young girls looking after old ass men, dating coaches telling them like, no, it's all right if he's old, just turn your head, girl. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like everybody's fucking with these poor girls in so many ways. The sex workers have also come out and said like, you guys can't just do that shit. It's like they're basically having the girls freestyle, which is a form of sex work, and like they don't know that that's what they're doing. How do you put girls in that situation? Like the sex worker girls know exactly what the fuck they're doing, but y'all don't.
Y'all don't.
Y'all are cosplaying, and that is
And
extra
that's
dangerous.
unsafe. Listen, if it's, and this is nobody, this is not to get down on the girls that do sex work, right? Because it's like, again, for some women that is their reality and that is what they're doing, but they know that that's what they're doing.
Are very aware of what they're doing, and they're very actually safety conscious, and like they know exactly what the fuck they're doing. Everything is very meticulously planned out actually. Like I got a lot of sex worker friends, and like they're strategists, right? But y'all don't have a strategy. They're telling you to dress up and go to a nice hotel bar and pick up men. You're freestyling. The sex worker girls know what they're doing. You don't. You don't. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a thing too. I even saw like that shift with soft life where it became like living off of men when originally the Nigerian girls who did soft life was just about a soft life. It didn't have to do with men, actually. It was just like pampering yourself and living a cute life or whatever. And like the coaches turned it into that as well. It's like now you're freestyling. That's not what it was. That's not a soft life. That's actually very difficult. Sex work is not easy.
Sex workers
First of
work.
all. So you guys are working. That's not soft. Yeah, there's a lot of confused ass people out here right now, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like, they're masking it as conservatism, and they're masking it as soft life, and they're masking it as trad life and all of these things, and it's like, I think it's very dangerous to convince girls and women to give up their career ambitions and their education and all of this to lay it and live up under a man. That's wild.
I could tell you this, like basically from personal experiences. Like I said, I felt trapped because I didn't have no work history. I didn't have no way to get no fucking education, no way to get a fucking decent job to live off of that. You know, when I left, I was basically out on the street practically. When my apartment burned down, I didn't have nowhere to go. You know, he didn't even pay child support after he coerced me and pressured me into having that baby to control me. He thought it would trap me, and when it couldn't trap me, he was just like, "Oh, so I'm not gonna pay child support then." How do you do that to somebody? You know? So it's like they're advising these girls to do this and to count on men who will flip on you in a second and who will use that to fucking harm you. And then you're gonna be asked out. Like the majority of homeless women with kids are such because of domestic violence because they had to just leave and they had nowhere to go. They had no money to do it with. And like you're advising girls to put themselves in that situation. When he gets tired of you and leaves, or when you decide that you can't put up with the fucking shit anymore, how you gonna leave?
How you gonna leave?
I'm not gonna give you the money to go. You're trapped. You are essentially trapped. Good luck to you. That's why they end up homeless. It's just like I was lucky that that shit fell into my lap that I was not expecting. But everybody's not so fucking lucky. You know? I was that person at one point. It's not a fucking good idea. You should always have your own money for your own safety fucking sake.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you did. It's a good segue. How has motherhood influenced your activism and your perspective on activism? And what lessons do you want to leave for your daughter?
How is motherhood? Oh man, like I feel like I'm only here because I have a kid at this point. Life has been hard for me. I'm not gonna lie to you about that. Like I don't feel like I would still be here if I didn't have a kid. Like I would not see a purpose to continue waiting for more shit to happen to me. Honestly. Um if I've sought a better life, if I've like meticulously strategize to have an extremely peaceful home life, to have her living nicely or whatever. It's because of her. Because I feel like the way that I was raised so simple to be like, oh, I don't need anything. I don't want anything, you know? And I would have settled for nothing for myself, honestly. But with her, I can't do that. I can't settle for nothing. She needs to have the best. And also she's autistic, so it's like I'm going through a lot of shit with like the school system. um it's even stuff like she made me question everything, honestly. I remember when she started kindergarten. She's always been very smart, but she hates having to prove that she's smart. She's like, what the fuck for? I remember like they could not get her to test whatsoever. The teachers passed her because they knew that she knew the material. And they made me come in and she's like, and I asked her like, why don't you want to take the test? She's like, I don't care if they know what I know. She literally said that. She was like 5 years old. She's like, I don't care if they know what I know. And like it just made me realize like it's she's like, I'm not a show pony. What the fuck do you care? You already know. Why are you making me jump through mad hoops for no fucking reason? The first couple years, she just refused to be the show pony, and like they just had to pass her, not because she didn't, not just passing her just because, but because they knew that she knew. You feel me? And they treated her like shit in a lot of those fucking places. The special ed teachers, who had no patience, which means they had no business fucking being there. Um, I realized the how little support mothers have, especially Black moms. You really out here on your own in life. In fact, the moment I got pregnant, I noticed that people started looking at me different.
Mm.
It was like a look of, I realized like the whole like, oh, well, motherhood is so wonderful and beautiful and babies are so beautiful. Well, that's not for Black women. You know, as soon as I was pregnant, people started looking at me. You know how you look a pregnant, you look at how they'll look at a pregnant crackhead, and I'm not saying that crackheads should be looked at that way either, because like chemical addiction is serious, and you don't know how the fuck they ended up there. But it's like the whole like, wow, you have no business having a child.
Mm.
And they look at you like you're bringing vermin into the world. It's like, when you see a roach dragging its little roach egg and you're like, wow, you're about to infest this fucking house. I need to stamp you out. That is how people started looking at me. I remember in Hawaii, because like that's where I was most of my pregnancy. At one point, I walked through a gas station. I had on these little flip flops, and there was like oil on the ground. And I slipped and I scraped both of my knees. I had a big old belly. Okay. Um, I went into a McDonald's that was right next door to like get napkins to wipe my knees because I had to like walk back home. It wasn't far, and I remember people just looked at me. Nobody was like, oh, what happened to you? Let me help you. People were like absolutely disgusted. I've never been looked at with so much disgust in my life as when I walked in with my knees bleeding with a big old fucking pregnant belly. You know, like shit like that just kept happening to me. And I realized like I literally went down a notch socially because I'm a mother now. Like who expects that? I remember at one point I answered the door of this former white friend. It's the one that ended up telling me to go back to Africa. Surprise. And I don't have white friends like that, but that man did. And I've never had to deal with white people after that. And I was like, it really was you. The problem was you. So one day, they were like in the back and I answered the door and I have like a 9-month belly. And one of his white friends is at the door and he's like, who are you? Where's Ed? And he pushes past me. He thinks I'm there to rob somebody with a 9-month pregnant belly. And I was just like, there is no way in motherfucking hell that you would act like that with a white woman. There is just no
Oh, of course
fucking way
not.
in hell that you would fucking assume that I'm robbing somebody. And like, girl, I don't know. It's just like my social position literally went down because I had a baby, you know? We're really out here with nothing. If you try to get help, you're a lazy welfare mom or something like that, you know? Even though I was married, people would still assume that I got pregnant to trap him. He's the one that pressured me to have a baby, mind you. I have been married for 3 years already. You know, they're like, oh, I'm sure you got married and she got pregnant. No, no. Or like, I can't believe you're married because who would marry me? You know? It was just like a lot of shit like that. And yeah, no. Being a mom, activated like the inner I was nowhere near as mean before I had a baby. But it's like your that lioness like protector mode just is like clicks on or something. Like soon as I was pregnant it clicked on and like it has not clicked back off ever again. Now it's like I'm going for the fucking jugular. And I don't care what the fuck happens. Nobody is doing anything to me or to my child. If I gotta fucking kill your ass, then I'll do it without fucking remorse too. Like that's how I fucking feel about it. Like everything changed for me in that regard.
Okay.
For sure.
You're a painter.
Hmm.
I love your watercolors. I think my favorite are the little ones with the moped, the people on the mopeds. It's like there's something about art in the diaspora where you don't have like facial features, where you just like have like figures, and I feel like it just does something where like I personally I can look and see like my cousins and my aunts, and like I can see like like my dad in Jamaica, and being in Jamaica and being on like the back or on the front of the little moped,
That's
and
interesting that you mentioned that because there's also traditional Dominican dolls um that we make that are always faceless as well. They're always brown and faceless. You know, they're like very beautiful and very elaborate, made of like that red clay type.
hmm
You know, and that's mad interesting. It's like diaspora wide, like that is true. Like I didn't even think about it. I kind of just did it. I didn't think about it, but that's mad true.
there's like so many forms of art that we do that don't show specific features. We just show like the skin tone, the
Mhm.
hair, everything, but like no eyes, nothing. And it's like I don't know. I have to do some more research on what that means. But
No, it's true, and you don't even need the face. It reminds me of that famous painting. I believe it's like a Black American painting of the lady who has like she's like waking up. She's on the bed. Her thing
and
is
she's
like
like
half.
sitting on the bed looking,
She's just like
and we all like, yes,
exactly
sister,
what the fuck. If I don't need to see her,
same. I don't need to see her face.
you know, it's so
Look,
real.
you know exactly who she is. As soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, she's sitting on the
Like,
edge
girl,
of the bed.
I,
She's just
it's like when you tired. Like I know that kind of tired. I know that type of tired.
so.
Like.
That's so funny. So how did you get into watercolor?
Honestly, I started drawing extremely early on because my mother is a painter. My mother is an illustrator and a painter. Um, my dad used to say my mom was doing too much because as soon as I could hold something, like she would put a little pencil in my hand and get me to draw or whatever. But it's because she's always drawn. I grew up combing through my mother's portfolio because she went to school for fashion design in New York City. But what can I say? My mother's type is not one that is accepted in fashion design, you know? Um, she was like a Dominican, very foreign lady with like a very thick accent or whatever. So like, my mom worked at factories sewing clothes when there used to be that in New York City. Because remember they pushed all those fucking factories out. Giuliani basically wiped it all out off the map. That's why I'm like laughing at people talking about we're bringing manufacturing back. Y'all are the one that kicked it out. Because the garment is industry, like the garment district used to be a
Used
garment
to
district.
really be the garment district.
My mom always tells a story. She's like, if you lost your job at one factory, you could go across the street and just start working at another one right then and there. Because there were so many factories, there was so much work. That was the lifeline of a lot of people, especially of a lot of like immigrants like my mom. So it's like, she never got to be in fashion proper. But like my mother had like an extensive portfolio, and like that's where I learned how to draw, basically like fashion illustrations and that type of thing. And because of that, then I went to elementary school mostly in the Bronx. I did a couple years here too. And they sent me to the Bronx Museum of the Arts for like this Saturday program that they had. I don't know
Okay.
if they still do that, but it was like really cool. And it was just like a bunch of kids from the hood who were like good at art or whatever. And they taught us how to like paint in oils, paint in watercolors. They taught us sculpture. They taught us animation. Like
Wow.
it was like a really, really fucking cool program. I remember that's where I first saw and then they would let us kind of like peruse in the museum as well. That's where I first saw like Frida Kahlo, for example, which now I've realized was a problematic ass lady. But I always had a unibrow which doesn't even grow in anymore because I plucked it so much. And I remember I seen this lady and she had like a unibrow and a mustache and I was like, I get you. But it's like that was very formative for me, basically. If I have any art education, it was basically because of the Bronx Museum of the Arts and like that little program that lasted a few months on Saturdays.
And that's so interesting. You cite your mom as like an artistic influence. Because my
She is
mom, my
my
mom was
mom.
my artistic influence. My mom was a
Yeah.
photographer. She was a darkroom photographer. So I grew up in a darkroom with her, and she used to be a medical photographer at Mount Sinai Hospital, and she put me in schools in East Harlem so I could be close to her job, and I would go to her
That's what
job and help her in the dark room and stuff. And she wanted to go into fashion design, but my grandfather didn't want her to go into fashion. He told her he didn't want her to be a seamstress. He made her take bookkeeping at Norman Thomas. And when she had me, um, she went back to school for photography, and I was a few months old. I was a baby. I was like a newborn baby. She went back to school
that's
for photography,
amazing.
and she was like, some of her first pictures in a portfolio was of us, was of me and her. Like I'm an infant, and she's like holding the baby up to the camera, and she was like, I asked her, I was like, well, why did you go back? What inspired you to go back? And she was like, well, I was working at the bank. I didn't want to work at the bank anymore. I always wanted to be in photography. I always wanted to do fashion or something related to it. And I said, why not? And I think that's when we think about New York, like losing all of those things, right? Like, cause you did a Saturday program at the Bronx um, Museum of Art. I did a lot of arts programs in East Harlem at Boys Harbor, right? Like where we learned everything. We did photography and sculpture and dance and theater, and we did all of these things. And like it was just a bunch of kids in the hood. It wasn't any, like we were all kids from the neighborhood. Even though I didn't live in the neighborhood, but my mom worked in the neighborhood, so I was always there. And just the city having access to those things for low income, middle income people, they're not realizing how much they're losing. You know, like you can't just remove those things. You can't remove industry, and you can't remove those kind of those art programs. You can't take the arts out because people need those things. Like art is one of those things. It's one of those avenues that it touches you very young, right? So like your mom, being able to look through your mom's portfolio and see and get inspired by your own mom, and then have her still work, you know, in fashion in some capacity, you know, and still have access to vocation and be like, okay, if I lose my job, I could go across the street and blah, blah, blah. I remember riding the train and going on the Q train, going into Brooklyn. You could see the ladies in Canal Street on the sewing machines in those little factories in Chinatown. Like you could see them. Like you could literally look and be like, oh, that's a factory. Like, you know, they got the windows wide open in the summertime and there's a bunch of ladies in there sewing. And it's like, how are people supposed to have expressions if capitalism is coming down so hard? What is going to be left? Like you said, everybody's not going to college. That's fine. Everybody's not an academician. That's great. But some of us are artists. Some of us are the people that have to tell stories. Like you need access to those things.
I always think about, my mom's story is just very like, whoa. And I didn't know about it until maybe a couple of years ago. Like I know how to sew and cut patterns and drape and all that stuff too because I grew up watching my mom do it. You know, when the factories left, my mom would still sew for people and like she was a seamstress from home, you know, like as a side hustle. But my mom started sewing professionally at 11 years old.
Wow.
11 years old. And it was out of necessity, and I had no idea. Nobody talks about disability here, right? And it was because her mother was in such a deep depression because her mom had died that she couldn't get out of bed, you know? And my other auntie, who was also a seamstress, which is how my mother had learned to sew, watching her, she got arthritis and she couldn't move her hands anymore to like sew. And they were the breadwinners at home. So at that point, my mom is the next oldest person at 11 years old, and she had to literally start sewing professionally, like as a seamstress.
Wow.
11 fucking years old. And I'm like, this lady is a genius. And I always think about just like the potential that people like us have or whatever. And how it's just like, instead, you're like just slaving away at 11 years old, but you're like a fucking genius at this. Honestly, you're sewing professionally. Like the whole neighborhood would come to my mom to get their clothes made because back then, there wasn't as many shops. So you had to get everything like custom made for yourself, which is like sad that that's also kind of like faded away. Um, and it's like that's just like the amount of potential there, to just have it be like completely ignored. To like come to the US then and also just be seen as like you go work in a factory, you're not fit for this high fashion elite shit. And it's like this just the lack of fucking appreciation and recognition for the talent. And it's like we at least got to go to like these programs or whatever that did something for us, but like on some level it's only gotten worse somehow. It's
Oh, it
like we feel
has
like all of
definitely.
that has gone. Like none of that potential and genius is recognized whatsoever at this point. Like it never was, but even less now.
Even less now. You know, and I just think it's I didn't think that we would get to this point. Like when I was younger, I just always thought that things would possibly be better, you know, like maybe shit is bad for us now, maybe, you know, we live in the
It's like it's
hood
gonna get
now,
better. It's like
but it's
no.
just to see how things have just progressively gotten worse. It's just
The
very
boomer generation made it a point to be the last people to have anything and just fuck everything up for everybody after them. And they're still like fucking 80 years old, doing their best to fuck shit up as much as they can before they die. What a wretched fucking generation, honestly.
ugh. Well, you also DJ.
I do. I DJ.
What are you listening to right now?
Right. Lately I've been listening to some Dominican artists. Doing like modern versions of bachata and merengue, which are like sort of like traditional music stuff that maybe started in the 60s, 70s, stuff like that. A little bit before that, if you really, really look back. But like the proper forms that you know now. But they hadn't been updated for a while, and like this generation is like updating it, and I find that like really interesting. I've been listening to that. I've been listening to a lot of Nola Bounce. I love Magnolia Shorty and Vicky Lowe and stuff like that. I'm a DJ and I'll be pissed off because people don't be wanting to hear shit like that. I'm like, why I gotta play only the stuff that you already know, and like, why I can't play other stuff? That pisses me off. What you mean you don't want to listen to Magnolia Shorty yelling over an R&B song? Like y'all are boring, but yeah. I listen to like basically everything, but I go through phases basically. That's my phase right now.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Okay. Um, I don't know. This has been so good. Like, I feel like there's just so much art that you carry within you and within your work, and I just love it so much. Like I said, like I love the your watercolor series. I love your digital illustrations of of women just laying around enjoying life.
I'm sorry, my dog is.
It's okay. It's island life. It's island life, right? I feel like it would not be appropriate. It would not be appropriate to record and there's not a dog barking in the background, possibly chasing someone. I've gotten chased by by some dogs in Jamaica a few times, scared the shit out of me. Um, but
I'm
I
sure
think
the motorcycles have passed by as well, and I tuned them out, and I don't even notice.
no, it's like I said, like that's like it's the ambient sounds of the island, you know. What do you have coming up next? Well, how can people support you and your work?
I have a Patreon. That's patreon.com slash bad underscore Dominica. I have some things on the lookout. You can also support my art at shop sahirakelly.com. Um, I have some fashion related things coming.
Okay. Okay.
I realized that's something that I had suppressed for a long time, but that I still want to do because I grew up also thinking that I was gonna be a fashion designer. And girl, I graduated from here in DR, and FIT wouldn't even accept my transcripts because they were in Spanish. That was like my lifelong dream. I had based my entire life around that. So then I got accepted to a fashion program at SUNY Oneonta, and
Okay.
they refused to give me any information on financial aid. Nobody in my family knew how to navigate that. I didn't even understand the concept of loans, and they refused to fucking tell me. They were like, "Look at it online," and I'm like, "What do you mean online?" It was like fucking 2001. I don't know about this. Like I don't know where to even look. I didn't know Sally Mae even existed. And they just refused to fucking explain, no matter how much I call that financial aid office. So I never ended up doing it, even though that was like, I swear, like my lifelong dream. I just realized that unfortunately, I was like depressed for like 10 years over that because it was like, it felt like I had been fed that you can be anything you want to be. And then life hit me in the face. Like, actually, those dreams are not for people like you. You know what I'm saying? That's for other people. Um, so I'm kind of getting back to that actually on my own terms.
Well, I'm excited to see what kind of pieces you come out with and what your new line is going to be like. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your thoughts and your words and your speech and also of your art, which is a part of you. And I think that sometimes as artists, you know, we can get very much in our own world and not realize that there are people out there that appreciate their work. So I just wanted
I
to,
appreciate it a lot. Yeah, no,
no, I wanted to
I
actually give
tend to
you.
think that nobody gives a damn and I just do shit to do it,
No,
honestly.
no. I think that it's like I said, I think that you've carved out a nice space for yourself from your perspective, and you give a lot of room to other Afro Latinas and other Black women in the diaspora to speak their truth and to express themselves and to be themselves unapologetically. And we need more of that. So thank you. Thank you, thank you,
Thank
thank you.
you. Thank you for the understanding. I feel like, that's like really important and like I appreciate it a lot, honestly. That you actually see me because I feel like honestly a lot of people don't see people like us, you know?
Oh, but I'm excited for all of the things that you have coming up. And where can people find you online aside from your website and from Patreon?
Instagram, Bad Dominicana 2.0, Twitter, Bad Dominicana as well.
Okay.
That's where I
Oh,
stay at with the random thoughts and stuff
and
because
where can we hear your mixes?
the mixes I've got the links up on the IG and Twitter as well.
Okay.
There's a mixtape I put out that's like free that you can download from there as well.
Okay. All right. Well, we definitely gonna have to give that a listen, and I hope um to have you on the show again because this was great. Thank you so much. And as always, my name is Nikki Buchanan, and this is How to Be Magical. This episode is Bad Dominicana Decoded. How Zahira Cabrera Kelly rewrites the rules, and we thank her so much for coming on and sharing, giving us a slice of life, straight from the island of DR. Thank you so much for coming through, Zahira. And again, this is Nikki Buchanan. You're listening to How to Be Magical. And as always, keep it Black, keep it beautiful, and keep it cute. Peace.